guys, Mazeplay here. Got Sean here helping out. We are going to talk about safety on the farm today. Ta-da!
Anyway, we wanted to give you a heads up, or not a heads up, but just kind of a reminder. Take a look at some of the safety issues. This is a great time of year to take a look and think about some of the safety issues that you may be experiencing. Planning's coming up here soon, so you're going to get busy and there's going to be a ton of things coming on. And sometimes
now's the time.
safety takes a back seat to everything, so we just wanted to hit on this. We're not going to cover everything from a safety issue.
Too much.
It would take a long time. But we wanted to hit on a few things to just kind of take a look at, jog your memory. We're also going to talk about maybe some of the issues that we've seen over the years on some of the farms or heard about. Just to kind of give you a heads up reminder, but you're going to need to look for a lot more than we're going to talk about here. But we did want to give you an opportunity to think about it. Just a reminder. Kind of take a look at your operations, maybe from a new set of new perspective or new set of eyes, and then hopefully that'll help out. So,
yep, let's start with hazards.
There's a lot of hazards on a farm.
Yes, especially for people who haven't been on a farm before, which is a lot of your customers. So, would you like to start?
As we talk about inviting people onto the farm, a lot of us are inviting kids onto the farm. And the law, even the law, looks at that a little bit differently than we may look at it sometimes. They say a kid really can't see a safety concern or a safety issue. We as the adults or the operators of the venue,
it's your responsibility.
Yeah, we need to take a look and see if we need to look at all those hazards. And I've seen some hazards, or I've heard of some accidents that honestly I wouldn't have seen. I didn't expect, and so wanted to kind of we'll bring some of those up as we go along and talk about it. But you guys have got a lot of different attractions on your farm. I'm gonna kind of cover some of them. Like I said, this is not a complete list, but we're gonna talk about a few of those attractions that you may have on your farm, and maybe some of the things that might be an issue along those attractions. So most of you, or a lot of you, may have a hayride, and I've heard some pretty comical hayride stories over the years, and thankfully people haven't got hurt. I've also heard some pretty tragic stories over the years.
Died and gotten hurt.
Yeah, so wanted to kind of cover those a little bit about hayride. So, if you're going to be putting a lot of people on a hayride wagon, I would have it ready, stable, built to do that. I would have the railings on it.
Of weight.
I know as it used to be that you just stuck hay over top of a wagon and people piled on, and that used to be the way it is. But if you're inviting people onto your farm and you're trying to move them, I don't think I would do that anymore. I would probably look at a safer way to do that. I would have my railings. I'd have a good way steps. Good way to get people loaded and unloaded. I really like the steps that fold up and then fold back down. It's a good way to get people on and off of the wagon, low wagons as much as possible. If you're talking about hayride wagons, one of my favorite would be the Bucks. Remember?
Oh my goodness, they are so cool. They are just fabulous. They look amazing.
Norm has done a lot of time thinking about how to do a hayride wagon, and he's got the railings around the outside edge. He basically put pulls down or pipes down into the stay pockets. Then he built the bench out and the railing back up. So he's got seating on the outsides. Then he's got seating down the center as well. So those wagons can hold a lot. They're big wagons. Then on the outside of the wagon,
cool because they have these like pumpkin holders. Because nobody wants to try climbing up with their kid in one arm and a pumpkin in another, and all their other kids have pumpkins. They have places to put their pumpkins around the outside.
Yeah. So you just put your pumpkin up. He just cut barrels in half. The plastic barrel, 30-gallon barrels, I think is what he was using. And then cut them in half and mounted them on the outside underneath of where he has the people sitting. Yeah, it's brilliant. They look really good. He's also gotten really nice stairs and that coming in and out of the wagon.
On one of them, don't they even have wheelchair access?
They do. Yep. So, pretty fun things that can be done along those lines. Say, check your safety chains. Make sure your hitch pins are pinned. so they can't come up, and you've got some safety chains. That's one of the first things I'd do. I would also look about what I'm pulling the wagon with. So on a instance where it didn't go so well, there was a farm in Maine, and they were pulling a wagon with actually a Jeep. They had a haunted trail that they were pulling the wagon on. They had it loaded with about 30 people. They were also covering some terrain that was up and down. The CJ had been on this, they'd been pulling for years. They'd done it for a long time, and a lot of us think, well, if I've been doing it for 5 years, it's probably a pretty good system. Well, in this case, as they were coming down off the hill, it may have been a little slick. I don't know all the details of the situation, but the Jeep turned and the wagon went straight. There's more weight in the wagon than the Jeep. It went over the side of a hill, went down and hit a tree, and killed a girl as it hit the tree that was on the wagon.
A lot of people were hurt.
There were some injuries. There was another serious injury, but one fatality with that. The major thing coming back with that, taking a look at that situation, that was a 4,000-pound Jeep. You put 30 people on a wagon. The wagon is way outweighing the Jeep. The Jeep has no control over the wagon. You put it on a 40,000-pound tractor, that would not have been the same case, or a 20,000-pound tractor. But, you've got to take a look at how much weight you may possibly have on that wagon and the wagon combined. Make sure that whatever's pulling it has more weight. Another thing that we've noticed that you may want to take a look at is what we call lanes of travel. So you don't want to have travel where people can step into the way. So if you've got going through a corn maze or whatever, I would definitely have that fenced. The tractor driver, it's not fair to expect him to see somebody darting out of the corn. It just won't happen. And it would be horrible if somebody darted out of the corn at the wrong time, slipped under a wheel, and was injured. And actually, something like that has happened, and it killed an actor. It was in a paintball situation. It was an actor they were doing zombie paintball, and the actor stepped out of the corn and slid under a bus, and the bus ran him over.
I didn't realize it for a while because it was a haunt scene.
Yeah,
so
people didn't realize it till later, and it was a really bad deal. I remember the maze owner that was doing it. It really tore her up. They quit doing the maze. Not because they had to, but because she just couldn't live with that on her conscience anymore.
She's been really good, though, about letting people know the safety precautions and having people come out and make sure that things are safe and fencing things off, making sure that there's not a possibility of any of your employees getting hurt. Yeah,
if you'll notice in our safety section in the maze manual, we'll refer to that. There's how that happened. She provided us with information that the investigators looked at and went through, and that might be something good to review, so that when you are looking at your farm, you're thinking, okay, can something like this happen? I've seen people put hayride trails, like I said, through the maze, and again, you want to make sure that somebody can't run out in front of a vehicle as much as possible. I do know that some safety inspectors are looking for that kind of thing, and I know an attraction that was put up last year. It was a train going around. We've got a lot of trains, or not a lot, but there's a few farms that have trains on them. Some of them, the tracks are open, but this inspector made them put a fence around the train track so that somebody couldn't run into the train. And I think for the situation that they were in, that may have been a good idea, especially where they were going and what they were looking at. So
it's not worth risking anybody getting hurt.
Yeah, you don't want to get, especially a little child hurt. You really don't want to do that. And so taking a look at some of these things is important. Again, getting people on and off the train, make sure that's safe. Railings, wait, and don't put the wagon in a place or a terrain that might be a dangerous situation. It's just not worth it. So I'm going to flip now to barrel trains. Ta-da! We used to have when I was running the maze, we used to have killer barrel train. It was an attraction that the teenagers really loved. But I remember one time I was out there giving them a ride, and I was giving them the ride. Giving them the ride of a lifetime. And I went around went around, spun around, and was traveling fast enough that the barrel on the very end, the barrel
Was the
cart
wild
tipped up
ride
to
one.
its side. I soon realized I was going way too fast, and that whip effect on the barrel train, that wasn't a good situation. Thankfully, nothing happened. It tipped up a little bit and then tipped back down. We changed the way we did things. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't
Freaked 'em out
worth
a little
getting
bit.
somebody hurt. I do know of another farm with a barrel train. Wasn't a problem. They were doing, it wasn't your normal barrel train. They were doing some wagon. It was a little wagon train. They were in some soft sand, and one of the wagons tipped over. Nobody was hurt. However, about the time the statute of limitations ran out, somebody that was the person that was riding in that wagon sued the farm. In fact, he went to doctors to get an injury claim, and the doctors reported to that maze owner, said, this is what's going on. This guy's coming in for money. He's strictly after money. He was not hurt. He came to me for a claim. We denied him. But I want you to be aware he's out trying to get some doctor to sign off on this claim. Well, he went to 3 doctors, as I understand, and the 4th doctor actually signed off on a claim. The insurance actually ended up paying out on it. Nobody was hurt, but it was a situation where it still penalized the maze owner. So if you're doing something, it's always good to err on the side of safety. And if that wagon wouldn't have tipped over, there's no way that he would have had a claim of any kind. So anyway, you want to be careful of those situations. Make sure that what you're providing can be good. So talking about some other areas where people can get injured on the farm. When we start talking about those, we can talk about jumping pillows.
Those are probably one of the main complaints that we get from people is broken ankles. Different things. Sometimes they will pop and people will fall through.
Yeah, so jumping pillows are kind of, if you're going to have an accident on a farm with a jumping pillow, it's fun to see the kids out there playing. It's fun to see them, what's going on with them. One of the concerns probably is when you have big kids and little kids. Big kid bounce, little kid goes shooting.
It's the best part.
It's a lot of fun sometimes. So you want to have an attendant watching those and trying to reduce that bounce risk. And maybe you have a size, you may want to have a big kid pillow and a little kid pillow or pad. Pads seem to be a little bit on the safer side. A lot of people are switching to the pad. I'm not against the pillow, but know that it can be a concern. That's something you want to take care of. Definitely have them fenced off and watched to make sure. But that generally, there are a few issues along those lines. Another one that's come up that I didn't see coming is the rat races. I don't know if you know what the rat races are. Why don't you describe what a rat race is?
Great big culvert pieces of tube, the great big black ones. You cut them into short increments and people can get inside and run kind of like a hamster. And it's fun. You slide all over the place and you can race with your siblings. And
so I was out on a farm and my kids were out playing in one, and that was the funnest thing that my little one, if you know Jake, he was inside and he was just sitting there
he just
sliding.
sat and just spun.
And the others were pushing it inside. They were
Good
running
workout.
inside and pushing it. And he would slide up and then he would slide back down, slide up and slide. He was laughing like no other. It was fun. And that's what we want to see. That's what we want to enjoy. What we don't want to see is when it runs over somebody's leg and breaks the leg. So a lot of people had put those in tracks, like a couple railroad ties. So they had put those in railroad ties, and then in those railroad and then they would have a couple lanes that people would race down. Well, if a kid steps across a railroad tie and one of those culverts come rolling, that puts a lot of leverage right there, and it can break an arm or a leg, and it's happened quite a few times. So that's something you want to be aware of. If you have a rat race, Some people have eliminated them. They're just not going to deal with that hazard. If you have a rat race, you don't want to get anywhere where they can have a pinch point. So I would take a look, see about that. I definitely wouldn't have railroad tie tracks. We've seen some where they put the tracks on the inside. But again, if it's a culvert rolling over and somebody gets in the way, that's a potential place where you've got a lot of leverage over a bone, and the bone breaks. So you want to take a look. And it's rare, possibly, but it's happened enough that I would be careful of that type of situation. You may want to have them totally in the open. They go every which way, but you don't want to have
somebody out there watching, just like with any other attraction.
Yeah, but it's not as safe as what we may have thought to begin with. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. We're going to be looking at slides. And slides are super fun.
Love them.
But most of us don't have playground slides when we talk slides on the farm. We want something where people get cooking and they have fun. A lot of the playground slides have even changed over the years, and they're not near as fun. And it's kind of fun to come out the farm, have a good experience, and have a good a good slide. The big issue that I've noticed with slides.
Broken ankles, again.
Yep. And it's usually
slightly heftier people.
Yep.
Coming down. A good way to put that.
So, but there's an easy way to prevent those accidents on the slides.
You need an adequate length of, what is it called? The Teflon?
Dump truck bed liner.
Yeah, dump truck bed liner.
If you need a resource on where to get that, it's superslide.com. You can give us a call. We can give you that. It's just superslide.com. And you can get the blue stripe. It's white with the blue stripe down the middle of it.
Want to make sure it's adequately long enough so people aren't shooting out over it and getting grass stains on their butt or coming down the slide and breaking their ankle.
At the end of the slide, so a lot of us use the culvert. So we got a black culvert and it goes down, and some people didn't put anything on the out. So we need a slow down period at the bottom. So that when they come out, you've got the Teflon wrapped up around the bottom of it. So when they come out along the bottom of it, it transitions out to flat ground, and so they go out and then they slow down till they stop, and then they can stand up and walk off of it. Another reason why I like the blue stripe is because it's white and it doesn't get so hot. Yeah. So some of those black ones that were using black Teflon, when they were laying out flat on the ground, they got plenty hot. You'll also want to check your slides. Over the years, they expand and contract, and they can pull apart a little bit. So you may have a gap starting to pull if you've got two that are put together. A lot of people put two 20-foots together to have a 40-foot tube, and then you have your run out at the bottom. So you'll want to take a look and make sure that there are no gaps forming, or that you've got things tightened back up. But expansion and contraction can change things and you not realize it. It could have a lip in there. You don't want somebody to come down and catch that lip. You don't want the pain of that, but you don't want them breaking any bones or anything like that. So check your slides. Make sure they're safe that way. And it's fun to have something that's really fun. But usually that adds an element of danger in that. Try to eliminate any places where there's going to be a problem. The other problem that I've noticed with slides is, and some people put an attendant on them, is just making sure people don't come down and hit other people. So that's something
face
to watch.
first.
The railings around it. Kids can't crawl through anywhere.
Or climb on top of.
Yeah, or climb on top of. There's a lot of ways that kids they think they're safe until they're not. And so there's a lot of ways. So you need to make sure that they can't fall, can't climb out, can't get stuck in, those kind of things. Your stairs, that they're the proper distance apart, they have enough distance on the tread. Some of those things are things to watch for as well.